Welcome to the Christian Bro Code YouTube channel. In this video, I'm talking about 3 techniques for resolving conflict in marriage. If you're frustrated that every conflict with your wife turns into World War III, then keep watching, because with these techniques, conflict is actually going to help strengthen your marriage. What's up? It's your bro, Mario Escobedo. Thanks for tuning in to the Christian Bro Code. This channel is all about giving you something you can use to take a step from where you are right now to where God wants you to be. Let me tell you, bro, where God wants you to be is always better than where you are right now. If you're new to the channel, welcome and thanks for checking us out. Consider subscribing. Also, look in the description because there's a link to the Christian Bro Code podcast. All right, bro? Let's get started. In this episode, we're covering 3 techniques for resolving conflict in marriage. And by the way, I did another video with another 3 techniques for resolving conflict in marriage. That video is a lot longer than this one, but there's a lot of good stuff in there too. You can check it out by clicking right about up there. Since we're all bros here, we're going to use sports language to understand these 3 techniques. The first technique is listen to your teammate. For this technique to work, in fact, for all these techniques to work, you need to understand that you and your wife are on the same team. You're not on competing sides or on opposite sides. You're on the same team, and that team is called your marriage. So when I say listen to your teammate, of course, I'm referring to your wife. You've probably seen this happen in football, where the receiver runs a pattern, but the quarterback thought that he was going to run a different pattern. What ends up happening is that there's an incompletion on the play, or even worse, the other team can intercept the ball, and that team can end up scoring on that interception, all because of lack of communication. When there's lack of communication on a team, that team is never going to advance and it's never going to win. Well, it's no different in your marriage. There has to be good communication between you and your wife. Now, look, you're no dummy, right? I know you know this stuff. I know you know that it's important to listen when your wife is talking to you. I know you know that you can get in all kinds of trouble if you don't listen to your wife when she's talking to you. But in this technique, I want to talk about how you listen to your wife when she's telling you something. Now, let's all be honest here, right? It's just us bros. Let's all be honest here. This has happened to me, and I'm sure it's happened to you. Whenever you've been in an argument or a discussion with your wife, and she's going on and on about what you did wrong or what you did to upset her. Hey, bro, real quick, away from the camera, just you and me, right? Focus, right here. Come on, I need you right here. Look, be a bro. Don't go tell your wife that I said that. She goes on and on and on and on. Look, I know it happens. But you got this. Be patient. Hang in there. You got this. You can do it. Just, you'll be good, all right? I'm going to get back to recording. You're already thinking of all the ways that you're going to respond to her and prove to her that everything she's saying is wrong. Now, am I right or am I right? You've done that, right? Yeah, you have. Come on. I'm not the only one. And what ends up happening is that as soon as you see your chance, you jump in. And usually you end up interrupting your wife and whatever she's saying. And then you begin to unload like with double barrels, right? And all you want to do is prove to her just how wrong she is about everything she just said. And this is one of the worst things that can happen in your marriage. When you don't give your wife a chance to explain fully what it is that is bothering her, then you haven't really listened to her. You see, you become so concerned with being understood that you don't take the time to understand first. You don't take the time to listen to your teammate. And one of the most important things you can learn for resolving conflict in your marriage is to listen before you say a word. Even more importantly, listen before you even think of the words that you're going to say. It's not an easy thing to do. I know. You and I, we both, we have that urge to defend ourselves. We're thinking to ourselves, I don't have to stand here and take this, man. I'm the bro. I'm the man here. And so as your wife is talking, you're already thinking about all the things you're going to tell her. And as she's talking, you're having this imaginary conversation or imaginary debate with her in your head. And so you're not even really listening to her. So technique numero uno for resolving conflict in your marriage: listen to your teammate. While your wife is talking, don't say a thing. Man, don't even think anything. Just listen. All right, on to technique number 2. This technique is called no trash talking. Wait a minute. What? No trash talking? I mean, that's half the fun of the game, right? It's like, hey man, you're so weak, you can't even lift a grain of sugar, right? Am I right? You're so skinny that when you wear spandex, you have to wear a belt. I get it. I love it. Trash talking is just part of the game. It's a fun part of the game. But trash talking is for the other team, never for the members of your own team. And remember, we said that you and your wife are on the same team. So that means that when it comes to conflict in your marriage, there should be no trash talking. So what does trash talking look like when we're talking about resolving conflict in marriage? Well, I'm glad you asked. We could say a whole lot about this. But for now, all I'm going to say is that no trash talking means that when you're in an argument with your wife, always make sure never to use the words always and never. See what I did there? You see? Always make sure never to use the words always and never. And in that sentence, I used always and never. Pretty clever, right? When you have a disagreement with your wife, don't use the words always and never. That's trash talking. See, you trash talk when you tell your wife stuff like, you always do that. Or something like, why do you always have to be that way? Or you never want to do what I like to do. Or you never think that what I have to say is important. Or this last one, you never let me go out with my friend. Maybe that one's just me, right? What is so dangerous about using the words always and never when you're in an argument with your wife? Well, again, that's trash talking. Why is it trash talking? Because when you use the words always and never, you're actually attacking your wife's character. Instead of just pointing out a single occurrence of something she did to bother you, you paint her as an individual who always or never acts a certain way or does certain things. That's an attack on her character. Think about it, right? If you tell her, you never think that what I have to say is important, then really you're telling her you're an inconsiderate person who doesn't have the capacity to listen to what I have to say and give it importance. If you say something like, you never want to do what I like to do, then what you're really saying is you're such a selfish individual who only thinks about herself. And the same is true when you use the word always in your arguments. Think about this one. When you say, why do you always have to be that way? Well, you're pretty much telling your wife you're so messed up that you couldn't stop acting that way even if you tried or even if you wanted to. Remember, when you use those absolute terms like always and never, it's the same thing as attacking your wife's character. Basically, it's trash talking. So in those moments of conflict and argument, be sure to stay away from the trash talking. Now, before I get into the third and final principle, let me take a brief moment to ask you to subscribe to this channel. Click on subscribe and tap the little bell icon so you're always notified when there's a new video. And check out the Christian Bro Code podcast, where you'll find a longer version of this same teaching. There's a link in the description that will take you to the podcast page. On to principle number 3, and here it is. Team business stays in the locker room. All right, so maybe you've seen this happen in sports. After a game, a reporter is talking to a team member and says something like, hey man, that was a pretty bad loss tonight. What were things like in the locker room? And the player gives kind of a generic response, right? Well, it's something like, well, it's just one game. It's just one game, and we're going to put it behind us, and we're going to come out next time ready to play. It's really all we can do, right? It's always tomorrow, right? And then the reporter may follow up with something like, hey, what did the coach tell you guys in the locker room? And at that point, the player's attitude kind of changes, and he'll say something like, well, he told us the stuff that we needed to hear, but all that stuff was just for the team. That's team business, and team business stays in the locker room. Now, as a sports fan, you're kind of disappointed. I mean, you want to hear who got called out and cussed out, right? But the team knows that team business stays in the locker room. It does the team no good to tell the whole world who got in trouble with the coach and who was upset with whom. All of that stuff is team business. Nobody outside of the team needs to know team business. Team business stays in the locker room. Remember, you and your wife are on the same team. The team is called your marriage. There are going to be some aspects of your team's business that should never be heard outside of the locker room. Team business stays in the locker room. One of the most damaging things you can do to your marriage is to talk about team business outside of the locker room. That means that you shouldn't share your marriage conflicts with your friends just to get things off your chest. More than likely, your friends are just going to agree with you and give you more reasons why you should be upset with your wife. Now, don't get me wrong, friends are great and friends can encourage you in all kinds of things. But I would be very careful about sharing your team business outside the locker room and with your friends. Oh, what about family? You might say, man, I'm really close to my parents. I'm really close to my bro, to my sis, right? Shouldn't I be able to share stuff with them? No. And one more time, no. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't never, ever share anything with your family about your marriage, but you need to be incredibly careful about sharing marriage conflicts with your family members. Now, let me give you 2 reasons why I say that. Number 1, once you open the door to let your family into your locker room, it's very hard to get them out, and it's very hard to close the door again. Once you let your family into your marriage's business, it gets to the point that they feel it's their right to know about your marriage business. I've had people talk to me and even write to me, and they tell me that they're so frustrated because their wife's family knows all their business and they want to stick their nose in everything that they do. And by the way, that just doesn't happen with the wife's family. There have been many times when wives have complained to me about how their husband's family is sticking their nose in their marriage business. And I'll tell you again, once they're in, it's going to be hard to get them out, and it's going to be hard to close the door. Now, there's another reason why I say you shouldn't share your marriage business with your family. When you go and tell your family about all the bad things your wife does, slowly but surely, they start to form a negative opinion of your wife. Now, just think of how many times you've heard someone tell you, one of your bros, they tell you that his mom and his wife, they just don't get along. They can't stand each other. Now, I'm willing to bet that part of the problem is that the husband, the bro, he went and told his mom team business. He went and complained about some kind of conflict. Maybe he thought he was just venting a little bit with mommy or something. I love you, mommy. But his mom took it a very different way. Now, all of that stuff could have been avoided if team business had just been kept in the locker room. You see, after your conflict, you and your wife, you're going to kiss and make up and maybe some more stuff, right? But chances are that you're not going to go tell your family about all that stuff. So your family hears all the bad, but never any of the good. Look, if you need to share things about your marriage with somebody, do it with somebody whom you trust and who you know will not go spreading your business to others. Be very careful and wise in choosing with whom to share the details or the conflicts that take place in your marriage. Team business stays in the locker room. All right, bro. That's it. 3 principles for resolving conflict in marriage. Now, applying these 3 principles, it's not necessarily easy. So you're not going to get it right the first time you try them out. You're going to feel frustrated and you're going to want to give up and just go on doing what you've always done. That's the easiest thing to do, just to go back to what you've been doing all along. Don't do that. No, forget that. Stop doing that. Keep trying these principles because practice makes progress. All right, as I wrap up this episode, let me leave you with a final thought. Conflict in marriage, it's not a bad thing. Conflict can help you strengthen your marriage. It'll help you grow as a husband and as a person in general. Look, you're going to have conflict in your marriage. Just accept it. It doesn't mean you're a bad husband or that she's a bad wife. It doesn't mean you have a bad marriage. What it means is that you're 2 humans with their own wants and needs, and you're just trying to get along with each other. The key is to understand that conflict done incorrectly, it's going to weaken your marriage and eventually it's going to tear it apart. But conflict done correctly will strengthen your marriage and draw you and your wife closer to each other. Now, I'm a pastor and I talk with lots and lots of couples. And at the heart of most of the problems I see in couples is an inability to resolve conflict. Let me tell you something. If you get serious about learning how to resolve conflict in your marriage, you're going to have a much happier marriage, a much happier wife, which of course means a much happier life. Take what you've heard in this episode, use it as a starting point to learn how to use conflict to strengthen your marriage. Look, you don't have to become a conflict resolution ninja overnight. All you have to do is take a step from where you are right now to where God wants you to be. That's it. Be sure to check out the other videos on this channel. They're all designed to help you take a step from where you are right now to where God wants you to be. Till next time, take it easy, bro.